They say your wedding day is supposed to be the happiest day of your life, but what happens when someone uses that sacred moment to destroy you? My sister Emma thought she could humiliate me in front of 200 guests and get away with it. She thought wrong. This is the story of how one cruel toast at her perfect wedding turned into the moment that changed everything between us forever. My name is Sarah, and for as long as I can remember, my older sister Emma has been the golden child in our family. She was the one who got straight A's, the one who became a lawyer, the one who found the perfect man and planned the perfect life. I was the opposite. I struggled through college, worked odd jobs, and made mistakes along the way. But I was trying. I was rebuilding my life one day at a time. When Emma got engaged to Marcus, a successful investment banker, the entire family went into celebration mode. Our parents were overjoyed. The wedding planning began immediately, and it was clear this was going to be the event of the year. Emma spared no expense. Designer dress, luxury venue, celebrity caterer. Everything had to be flawless because that was who Emma was. She demanded perfection from everyone around her, especially from me. In the months leading up to the wedding, Emma asked me to be one of her bridesmaids. I was honored, even though our relationship had always been complicated. She had a way of making me feel small, like I was never quite good enough to stand in her shadow. But I pushed those feelings aside because this was her big day, and I wanted to support her. I spent thousands of dollars I did not really have on the bridesmaid dress, the bachelorette party, and the bridal shower. I showed up to every fitting, every planning session, every rehearsal. I did everything she asked. But there was something Emma did not know. About 5 years ago, when I was at my lowest point, I made a terrible mistake. I was struggling financially after dropping out of graduate school, and I got involved with someone I should not have. His name was David, and he was married. I did not know at first, but when I found out, I ended it immediately. It was the worst period of my life, and I carried that shame with me every single day. I had never told anyone in my family about it because I knew they would judge me. I knew Emma would judge me the hardest. Somehow, Emma found out. I still do not know how, but a week before her wedding, she confronted me. She did not yell or scream. Instead, she smiled that cold smile she always had when she held power over someone. She told me she knew everything about David, about the affair, about how I had been involved with a married man. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. She said if I did not do exactly what she wanted for the rest of the wedding preparations, she would tell our parents and everyone at the wedding. She would destroy my reputation completely. I felt trapped. I agreed to do whatever she wanted, hoping she would keep my secret buried. I became her servant for that final week, running errands at midnight, fixing last-minute problems, taking verbal abuse whenever something went wrong. I swallowed my pride and told myself it would be over soon. I told myself that after the wedding, I could distance myself from her and move on with my life. The wedding day arrived, and everything seemed perfect on the surface. The venue was stunning, the flowers were beautiful, and Emma looked like a princess in her custom gown. I stood with the other bridesmaids, smiling for photos and pretending everything was fine. But inside, I felt a growing sense of dread. There was something in the way Emma kept looking at me throughout the ceremony. It was the look of someone who had a secret weapon and was waiting for the perfect moment to use it. The ceremony went smoothly. Emma and Marcus exchanged vows, and everyone cried happy tears. Then came the reception. The room was filled with laughter, music, and champagne. I tried to relax and enjoy myself, thinking maybe Emma would keep her word and leave my past buried. But I should have known better. Emma never let anything go, especially when she had an audience. The moment came during the toasts. Our father gave a touching speech about watching his daughters grow up. Marcus's best man told funny stories about their college days. Then Emma stood up, glass in hand, and asked for everyone's attention. She thanked the guests for coming and talked about how blessed she felt. Then her eyes locked onto mine, and I knew what was coming. Emma started by saying how important family was to her, how she valued honesty and loyalty above all else. The room was silent, hanging on every word. Then she turned to me directly and said she wanted to share something special about her little sister Sarah. My heart started pounding. She talked about how I had always looked up to her, how I had always tried to follow in her footsteps, but never quite succeeded. People started shifting uncomfortably in their seats. The tone had changed from celebration to something darker. Then Emma dropped the bomb. She told the entire room about David. She told them I had an affair with a married man. She said I had lied to the family about why I dropped out of graduate school, that I had been fired from a job because of inappropriate relationships, and that I had been living a secret life full of poor decisions and moral failures. She said all of this with a smile on her face, as if she were sharing a heartwarming anecdote instead of destroying my life in front of 200 people. The room went completely silent. I felt every pair of eyes turn toward me. My parents looked horrified. My aunts and uncles whispered to each other. Some of Emma's friends were recording on their phones. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me whole. Tears streamed down my face, but I could not move. I was frozen in shock and humiliation. Emma finished her toast by saying she hoped I would learn from my mistakes and become a better person, just like she had always tried to teach me. Then she raised her glass, and some people awkwardly clinked their glasses while others sat in stunned silence. Marcus looked confused, clearly not knowing this was part of Emma's plan. Our mother was crying. Our father's face was red with anger, though I could not tell if it was directed at me or at Emma. I do not remember standing up or walking out of the reception hall. My body moved on autopilot. I found myself in the hotel lobby, shaking and sobbing. My phone started buzzing with messages from relatives asking if what Emma said was true, offering hollow sympathy or worse, condemning me for my past mistakes. I felt like my entire world had collapsed in the span of 5 minutes. But as I sat there in that lobby, something shifted inside me. The shock began to fade, and in its place came something else. Anger. Not just anger at Emma for exposing my secrets, but anger at myself for letting her control me for so long, for letting her make me feel worthless, for believing I deserved to be treated this way because I had made mistakes in my past. Then I remembered something. A conversation I had overheard 6 months ago when I visited Emma's apartment unannounced. She had been on the phone in her bedroom, and I was in the kitchen making coffee. I heard her talking to someone, her voice low and intimate in a way that did not sound like a conversation with Marcus. She was laughing, saying how she missed them, how she wished things were different. When she came out and saw me, her face went pale for just a second before she recovered and said it was just a work colleague. I had thought nothing of it at the time and pushed it out of my mind. But now, sitting in that hotel lobby with my life in ruins, I started putting pieces together. The late-night work calls Emma always took in private. The weekend business trips that seemed more frequent as the wedding approached. The way she had been distant with Marcus during the engagement, going through the motions but never seeming truly present. The fact that Marcus's best man, a guy named Alex, seemed to know an awful lot about Emma's schedule and preferences, finishing her sentences and sharing inside jokes that made Marcus slightly uncomfortable. I pulled out my phone and started searching. I went through Emma's social media, looking at photos from the past year. There, buried in group shots from work events and casual dinners, was Alex. He appeared in far too many photos, always standing close to Emma, always with that same familiar smile. I searched his profile and found similar patterns, comments on each other's posts that seemed too personal. Check-ins at the same restaurants on the same nights, even when Marcus was supposedly out of town. Then I did something I am not proud of, but desperate times called for desperate measures. I logged into Emma's old email account. We had shared the password years ago for a family streaming service, and she had never changed it. I scrolled through her messages, my hands shaking, and there it was, months of correspondence between Emma and Alex. Messages that left no doubt they had been having an affair for almost a year, right up until 2 weeks before the wedding. Messages where Emma talked about leaving Marcus but deciding the wedding was too far along to cancel. Messages where she called Marcus boring and said Alex made her feel alive. I sat in that hotel lobby for almost an hour, reading through the evidence and letting the rage fuel my clarity. Emma had not just humiliated me. She had done it from a position of complete hypocrisy. She had judged me for a mistake I made 5 years ago, while she was actively betraying the man she was about to marry. The man who loved her, who had planned a future with her, who stood at that altar believing he was marrying someone honest and faithful. I knew what I had to do, but I had to be smart about it. I could not just storm back into the reception screaming accusations. That would make me look unstable and vindictive. Emma would deny everything, and people would assume I was lashing out in desperation. No, I needed to do this carefully. I needed to make sure the truth came out in a way that could not be denied or dismissed. I forwarded the most damning emails to my own account. Screenshots of text messages. Photos with timestamps. I organized everything into a clear timeline that showed the affair had been ongoing throughout the entire engagement. Then I created a simple document that laid out the facts without emotion or exaggeration. Just dates, messages, and evidence. I cleaned myself up in the hotel bathroom, fixed my makeup, and took several deep breaths. Then I walked back into the reception. The party was still going. People were dancing, drinking, celebrating the perfect couple. When I entered, some guests looked away uncomfortably. Others stared with a mixture of pity and judgment. I ignored them all and walked straight to the DJ booth. I asked the DJ if I could make a quick announcement. He looked uncertain, but I smiled and said it was a surprise for the bride, something special from the family. He handed me the microphone. I tapped it twice, and the music lowered. The room gradually quieted as people turned to see what was happening. I started by apologizing for leaving earlier. I said I had been overwhelmed by emotion, which was true in a way. I thanked Emma for her toast and for being so honest about her feelings. I said honesty was important in families, and that since we were being so open today, I wanted to share something too. Something I had just discovered that I thought everyone should know, especially the groom. I saw Emma's face go from confused to panicked in seconds. She started moving toward me, but Marcus put a hand on her arm, curious about what I was going to say. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the venue's screen system that had been showing the couple's photo slideshow. The screen changed to display the first email I had found. I did not read every detail. I did not need to. I simply scrolled through the messages, letting people read Emma's own words, her declarations of love for Alex, her complaints about Marcus, her admission that she was going through with the wedding for financial security and family expectations. The timestamps that proved this had been happening throughout the engagement, right up until days before the ceremony. The room erupted in chaos. People were gasping, shouting, pointing at the screen. Marcus stood frozen, his face going from confusion to devastation as he read the messages. Emma was screaming at me to stop, trying to grab the phone, but I stepped back and let the evidence speak for itself. Alex, who was sitting at one of the front tables, looked like he wanted to disappear. Several guests were recording everything on their phones now, the same way they had recorded my humiliation earlier. Our mother was crying harder now, but for a different reason. Our father looked like he might have a heart attack. Emma's friends sat in stunned silence. The perfect wedding had become a disaster, but this time it was not my disaster. It was Emma's. I handed the microphone back to the DJ and walked out of the reception for the second time that night. But this time, I walked out with my head held high. I did not run. I did not cry. I simply left, knowing I had done what needed to be done. Not for revenge, though I would be lying if I said that was not part of it. But more importantly, for truth, for Marcus, who deserved to know who he had married. For myself, who deserved to stop being controlled by someone who had no moral authority over me. The next few days were a whirlwind. The wedding became the talk of our entire social circle, but for all the wrong reasons. Marcus confronted Emma that same night, and according to family members who stayed, she finally broke down and admitted everything. She claimed it was over with Alex, that she had chosen Marcus, that it was a mistake she regretted. But the damage was done. Marcus moved out of their apartment the next day and started annulment proceedings immediately. Emma tried to blame me for everything. She sent me dozens of angry messages calling me vindictive, cruel, jealous. She said I had destroyed her life out of spite. She told our parents I had manipulated the situation and taken things out of context. But the evidence spoke for itself, and even our parents, who had always favored Emma, could not deny what those messages proved. Some family members sided with Emma, saying I should have handled it privately instead of exposing her in front of everyone. They said 2 wrongs did not make a right, that I had been just as cruel as she had been. Others quietly reached out to me, saying they were glad the truth came out, that Marcus deserved better, that Emma had been building towards something like this for years with her need to control and manipulate everyone around her. As for me, the strangest thing happened. In the weeks after the wedding, I felt lighter than I had in years. Yes, my own secrets had been exposed. Yes, some people judged me for my past, but I was no longer hiding. I was no longer living in fear of Emma's threats or approval. I was no longer letting shame define who I was. I reached out to Marcus a few weeks later and apologized for the way everything unfolded. I told him I wished I had found a way to tell him privately that he did not deserve to be humiliated in front of all those people. He was gracious and said he was grateful I had the courage to speak up, even if the method was painful. He said he had sensed something was wrong during the engagement, but convinced himself he was imagining things. The truth, as brutal as it was, had set him free from a marriage that would have been built on lies. Emma and I have not spoken since that night. I do not know if we ever will. Part of me is sad about losing my sister, even though our relationship was toxic for so long. But a bigger part of me knows this was necessary. She needed to face consequences for her actions, just like I had faced consequences for mine. The difference is I had already done the work to grow and change from my mistakes. Emma still believed she was above accountability. Looking back now, several months later, I realized that wedding was a turning point for both of us. Emma lost her perfect image, her perfect marriage, and the power she had always held over me. I lost my fear, my shame, and the toxic relationship that had held me back for so long. In a strange way, we both got what we needed, even if it was not what either of us wanted. The moral of this story is not about revenge, though that is how it might appear on the surface. It is about truth and consequences. It is about the fact that you cannot build a life on lies and expect it to stand forever. It is about how people who use others' secrets as weapons often have the biggest secrets of themselves. And it is about the moment when you decide you are worth more than the shame someone else tries to put on you. Emma thought exposing my past would keep me under her control forever. Instead, it freed me to expose the truth she had been hiding. She thought humiliating me would make her feel powerful. Instead, it led to her own exposure and the collapse of the perfect life she had been faking. I am not proud of the way I handled things that night. There might have been better, more private ways to reveal what I knew. But in that moment, with my dignity shattered and my secrets weaponized against me, I chose to fight back with the only tool I had, the truth. And sometimes the truth is the most powerful weapon of all. To anyone watching this who has ever been betrayed, controlled, or humiliated by someone who claims to love you, remember this. You do not have to accept mistreatment just because it comes from family. You do not have to carry shame for mistakes you have already learned from. And you definitely do not have to stay silent when someone tries to destroy you while hiding their own darkness. Stand up for yourself. Speak your truth, and never let anyone make you feel small just so they can feel big.